I'm Jordan Poole from the University of Michigan Basketball. You are watching TR Sports. Please enjoy.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to TR Sports. It is great to be back. I've been waiting months to come back with this. I took a break from the podcast. I really didn't give you an explanation. 17 straight weeks is a lot, so I figured I would take a break. I got really busy. I have lots of work to do. And so we took a break, but we are back and better than ever with Season 2. There's a couple changes, of course. New thumbnail. We got that new purple and blue look, which I hope you guys like. We have a new lineup look. We have, we switched the black to white. We switched everything to the bottom. And it's just a new, fresh look for the new season. The podcast we put together, I think, was really good this week. We talk about a lot of good stuff. I make my picks with the NFL season. Not the NFL season, the NFL playoffs. We look at the MLB free agency. We look at the Sixers and review their team. And we look at the CFB playoff championship game coming up. And finally, the biggest thing in this podcast is we have our first interview with a special guest, Atlanta Hawks fan page. We have Atlanta Hawks Nation. Great guy. So, that's awesome to bring to you. And that is going to be the final segment in today's podcast. He's got, I think, something like 10.8K thousand followers on his fan page. So it was great to have him on the show. I think the interview went well. I think this whole podcast should be pretty good. So we're just going to jump right into it with our first segment. And we'll be right back. Welcome back to TR Sports. It is now time to talk about college football and the college football playoff. The only other time we've talked about college football on the podcast was the last episode, or close to the last episode. I think it was like 15 or something. We talked about our Heisman picks, and we said that I think my number one pick was like, I don't know. I don't even remember, but we didn't get it right. We got one of the finalists. We did get Justin Fields, and we might have had Jalen Hurts on the list, but I'm not sure. Those were the two finalists, and the winner was Joe Burrow. Congratulations to Joe, number one. I mean, I had him in the back of my head. I kind of viewed him as the same as Sam Ehlinger, but this year he showed differently and might be the number one pick in the NFL draft. So we're going to have to wait and see on that one. But he led his team, LSU, to the college football playoff and has to play LSU in a bowl game. And they did play. They absolutely smoked LSU. Smoked Oklahoma. It really was not close. They really took Oklahoma down, and the score was 63-28. Okay, and the 28 for Oklahoma is nice, right? But it wasn't that close. Jalen Hurts ended the game with like a 2-touchdown run. Wasn't threatening because it was already the fourth quarter, and the score is 63-28. Joe Burrow absolutely dominated, had 8 TDs, 7 of them were through the passing, and 1 was through rushing, and let me tell you, he looked dominant. I watched this one on a plane because I was on vacation and I was flying back home, and oh my goodness, Joe Burrow dominated. You have to be careful on this one because Oklahoma does not play defense. Of course, they have a couple good players on defense. I believe one of them has like 60 tackles and like 30 over the last 4 games or something like that. He's very good. But overall, Oklahoma is a Big 12 team, not known for their defense, and I think they proved it here. They could really not hang with the big dog like LSU, and I'm not surprised. They probably should not have made the playoff. I wanted Utah to beat Oregon so they could get into the playoff instead of Oklahoma, but unfortunately Utah loses, Oklahoma wins. Oklahoma beats Baylor, beats some other good teams. Now they're in the playoff and they get pummeled by LSU. As I said, Oklahoma's in that dangerous position where you're making the playoff or you're making a bowl game and you suck every time you do it. They really cannot hang with a team like Clemson, OSU, the top dogs, Alabama. They can't. Georgia can't hang with them. Oklahoma can't do it. And that's the challenge now that Lincoln Riley and this Oklahoma team faces, is how are we going to make the playoff every year and win games? Because they're making it. The committee is giving it to them. No matter how weak their conference looks, where the second best team is literally an undefeated Baylor, but it doesn't mean that much because their conference sucks. It's tough. So they're making the playoff, and now they have a challenge of learning how to play with the big dogs, and that's just going to come with time, I think. Of course, they make the playoffs. So that's a successful season, and they lose to the best team in the country so far. So it's okay for them. Lots to improve on. I mean, you can't really get much better recruiting than they do, but can they, maybe work on the defensive side of the ball, stuff like that? Because right now, they just looked no match for LSU, and LSU really, really took it to them. So let's talk about the other bowl game, which was Clemson versus Ohio State. This was to play LSU in the final for college football, the final. And it was a tight game. It was 29-23. Clemson beat OSU out. And, oh, my God, this was a game. There were some controversial calls. Ryan Day, the Ohio State coach, wasn't happy. What can I say? Trevor Lawrence also looked dominant. Another dominant quarterback performance. I wasn't sure how he would play because all year, he's not been playing good teams. He's a young guy. I don't think his numbers didn't pop out to me. And he comes in this game and he proves me wrong. He's running down the sideline. He's a fast guy. He doesn't look it, but he's got those nice long strides, so he's able to run down the sideline. He had that very long touchdown run when he broke free of the pocket. And he just outran all the defensive ends, which isn't impressive, but he also outran the safeties, and he just bolted to the end zone with his long strides, and he's a fast quarterback. I also saw him take big hits. Absolutely fine. Didn't fumble the ball. When he took the hits, he was able to come back up quite quickly. Good game for Trevor Lawrence. And for OSU, they jumped out to a 10-0 lead. At one point, I believe it was even in the teens. They jump out to a big lead. Clemson is like, okay, we're going to wait it out. They take the lead at one point. They keep fighting. Now we're fighting more and more. And to seal the game, Chris Olave goes off his route, and Justin Fields throws a pick right into the hands of the Clemson defender. One of the OSU players got charged for targeting. That was bad. Big hit. Was it targeting? I think so. I know he tried to put his head down on that play, but he ended up just ramming right into the other player's helmet. This OSU team, it's not the way they wanted to go out. They got a lot of talent. They got KJ Hill. They got J.K. Dobbins, Chase Young, Justin Fields, Chris Olave, Benjamin Victor. They got Pete Warner. They got Austin Mack. They got Drew Chrisman. They got Baron Browning. They got a lot of talent. This is a stacked OSU team that came up against a stacked Clemson team. And what happened in the end was Clemson outplayed them. They weren't outcoached. They were outplayed, and that's what happened. That the better team won the football game. Clemson has so much talent, and they were able to come clutch in the end. And the better quarterback won. The better offense won. The better team won, which was Clemson, and they beat OSU to go to the finals on January 13th against LSU. And who do I think is going to win that game? And I'm really excited for this matchup, more than I've ever been for a college football playoff game. Because this LSU-Clemson matchup, this is really the clash of the Titans. These two teams are who I believe are the two best teams in the country. It should be a matchup, and I'm really excited. Two best quarterbacks in the nation, I think, heads down, are by far the two best quarterbacks, who are Trevor Lawrence and Joe Burrow, facing off in that final. And, who am I going to give the edge to? I really have no idea. If I had to pick, my pick is going to be Clemson. I believe Clemson will figure it out because they have so much talent. Like they did against OSU, I believe they're going to figure out a way to take this LSU team down. And they're going to be the big test for this LSU team to see if they are the real deal. And personally, I believe Clemson is the real deal. I believe LSU is the real deal. But I believe Clemson is so talented, has done it before, has been there before. Trevor Lawrence has been there before. Trevor Lawrence has never lost a college football game. He's 25-0. So why would I pick against Clemson? I'm not. At this point, I'm going all the way with Clemson. It's a real tough decision, but it'll be a hell of a game to watch. Yeah, so college football, good season for a lot of teams. You still got the bowl games. You got the New Year bowl games. You got some bowl games that have already been played, like Eastern Michigan. By the time this is out, they're already going to be playing the New Year's bowl games. But, of course, you still got the final coming up. So, yeah, that is college football playoff for you. We'll be right back on TR Sports. We are going to be talking about the MLB offseason and my 3 biggest moves that happened right here on TR Sports. Welcome back to TR Sports. So while we've been on our break with the podcast, we took a couple months off. We missed a lot in a lot of sports. One of them being the NFL, the NBA, and especially the MLB. We missed the playoffs. We missed free agency. So there's a lot to talk about with the MLB. There's, of course, the Astros cheating scandal. But we can't talk about all of that in one episode. We just can't catch up like that. So I want to do it segment by segment. And I feel like the thing that I want to talk about the most and the biggest thing to talk about is the MLB offseason. Big deals made, big contracts. They just getting crazy, especially after last season with the Bryce Harper and Machado contract. The contracts are really getting up there in the MLB. So I made a mini list here of my 3 biggest moves from this MLB offseason so far. The criteria for this one is what's the most interesting, biggest impact moves, and biggest question marks. So this is the 3. They're just in not really a particular order. I just threw them out there. This is my top 3 most interesting moves that I wanted to talk about. So the first move I want to talk about is Corey Kluber to the Texas Rangers. The Indians traded Corey Kluber for Delino DeShields Jr. and Emmanuel Chase, a righty reliever. This is a great move, number 1 for the Rangers. This is something I kind of wanted the Phillies to do. Of course, Corey Kluber had an ERA over 4 last season and injury problems, which is why the price for him was so cheap. Only a couple years ago, Corey Kluber was a top ace in the MLB, and now it just feels like he's being shipped off for a bag of chips, right? Corey Kluber for 2 guys that you guys probably haven't heard of. And that's what makes this move so interesting. Will Corey Kluber give the Texas Rangers the fire that they need? And I'm not sure he will. But I feel like the possibility for the Rangers is really there. Last year, they had a breakout season from Mike Minor, who's still in his 20s. And the team has potential. Of course, they struck out on Anthony Rendon, which we might be talking about later on this list. Spoiler alert. But, Corey Kluber is a great consolation prize. You get a top ace only a couple years ago, and he only had 1 offseason last year, and that's why people are worried about him on the Rangers. It's because of that terrible season that he had last year. But if I'm the Rangers, what am I going to lose? I'm kind of having a fresh look this season. I'm getting a new stadium. I'm trying to build up my pitching staff. And I want to play well. We had a decent season last year, just slightly below 500. Joey Gallo hit like crazy. Mike Minor pitched great, as I said. And in this trade, you're getting Corey Kluber for nobody. You're just giving away a righty reliever who's been pretty consistent, Emmanuel Chase, Clace, and Delino DeShields Jr. It's not Delino DeShields, it's Delino DeShields Jr. And they're both prospects, and they're not terrible, but they're not Corey Kluber and the potential that he could bring. One thing that does confuse me with this deal is that what are the Rangers trying to compete for? And that's the thing. Their team is just not good enough the way it's built. Yes, they have an interesting rotation with Corey Kluber and Mike Minor. They're only giving away 2 prospects for Corey Kluber, but the overall lineup of the team is just not good enough to compete yet. So it kind of confuses me. Well, you are getting Corey Kluber, but what are you going to do with him? They have money to spend. They tried to get Anthony Rendon, struck out. It's because they're not a team ready to compete. They're just not ready. So that's what makes this deal so interesting, is that they're getting a top-end pitcher, possibly. He might also suck, but it's a risk they're willing to take for giving away prospects of Emmanuel Clace and Delino DeShields. I think I said Chase earlier. I meant Clace. who aren't great prospects, as I said, but they are certainly pieces that the Indians can build with, and it looks like the Indians are going into a rebuild, even though their roster, the way it is, even without Corey Kluber, to me, looks better than that Rangers roster, but it's to be seen. Interesting move from the Rangers. The next deal I want to talk about is Anthony Rendon to the Los Angeles Angels on a $245 million contract over 7 years. Of course, another guy I want for the Phillies. The Phillies, we'll talk about them maybe in a later podcast, but there's just not enough time to do a designated Phillies segment in this podcast. But we can talk about the MLB, and that's what we're doing. So Anthony Rendon, 7-year, $245 million to the Los Angeles Angels. The Angels is another team that is confusing me. They're like the Rangers, but I do believe they're in a better position. Mike Trout is the best player in baseball in the past 20 years. He's been, not 20, like 10, because of Barry Bonds and stuff. But they have a really talented player in Mike Trout. Their pitching staff is terrible. Didn't do a lot of gathering that, but we're talking about Anthony Rendon here. But, there's a lot of holes. But Anthony Rendon certainly fills that. And if I'm the Angels, what else am I going to do, right? I don't have the money to go and get Garrett Cole. That's too much money. I'm going to have to build it against the Yankees. Yankees grab Garrett Cole. The Angels struck out on Madison Bumgarner. That was a player I thought they could have gotten. He was also stolen by the Diamondbacks. But this Rendon deal is perfectly fine by me. I think they did a great job in getting someone that has the star power of Rendon to pair with Trout. Maybe this will put them into the playoffs. It's possible. He's a great player. Mike Trout's a great player. I like Cole Calhoun in left field there. They have a good team, and they have a lot to build off of, but I don't know if it's enough to really compete. And I don't think it is, but the acquisition of Anthony Rendon is certainly a good one because they get that big money player that can maybe help them out. But again, it really hurts that they struck out on Bumgarner and Cole. But again, they don't have the money to compete with a team like the Yankees, and you're going to strike out every once in a while with a player like Madison Bumgarner. It's hard to get. Speaking of pitchers that we just talked about, Garrett Cole is the last deal I want to talk about in this segment. Oh my God, it is a big contract. It's a 9-year deal to the Yankees with a $36 million per year, and it's $324 million in total. That is a huge contract for a player that is not playing all the games. He's a pitcher. It's big. I'm not a fan of it. But again, if I'm the Yankees, I have all this money, and I'm not winning things. The last World Series I won was in 2009. It's time to step up. So I understand why they went for it, but $324 million is a lot of money to pay for a pitcher, and especially a guy who's only been doing it for like 2-3 years. But, since they're the Yankees, they have enough cash to cover a move like this if they need it, because they certainly might need it over the 9 years. It's 9 years with one pitcher who's already coming into his 30s. It's a big money deal. But you know what? In today's MLB, you got to spend a lot of money to get a great player like Garrett Cole. Again, interesting move. Does he put the Yankees over the top? I'm not so sure. A lot of people are sold on this Yankees team. I'm not completely there yet. I think they still have room to grow, and I believe this Garrett Cole contract should be great for them in the next 4 years. But in the next 9, it might be a little much. I mean, they can get other guys because they are the Yankees in the future. They can afford these guys. They can afford to wait. They didn't want to do that. Spent a lot of money on Garrett Cole. And that's, in my opinion, the most interesting move this offseason with Garrett Cole. So those are the MLB free agency deals that I wanted to talk about. I mean, of course, there's others. We might do another 3 list later on talking about free agency. Definitely want to talk about the Phillies. But those are just so far the most interesting deals that I've seen come out of the MLB. Next up on TR Sports, we're going to be breaking down all of the NFL playoffs. I'll make my wild card, divisional, conference, and Super Bowl picks. That's right up next on TR Sports. This segment, I'm going to be looking at this year's NFL playoffs, which is one of the most exciting. It's not a draw because the teams actually make it there, but they did it themselves, all the teams to get here, and we got lucky with these matchups. And I think some of them are really good. Some of them should be really good to watch. So in this podcast, I found a little bracket here that you can see on screen that I'm going to fill out. We don't do a lot of video related segments here on TR Sports, so I think this would be a fun thing to do, so you guys can have a visual on screen, and I can also talk about it with more of a illustration in your head. So that's what we are doing this segment. We're going to pick not only this round's playoff winners, but we are going to make our Super Bowl pick, and we're going to start on the AFC side with the Titans versus Patriots. This game, it's a lot of people's, Tom Brady's done game. There's always one of those. Tom Brady's too old. Max Kellerman from First Take frequently says that Tom Brady is going to fall off a cliff. And not to mention, Ryan Tannehill and his Tennessee Titans have played some really good football. Derrick Henry has been great. The offense has been great. But there's a lot of question marks with the Tennessee Titans also. Defense isn't really there. Ryan Tannehill has only had a good 8-game stretch. Yes, he did get away from the Dolphins, and that seemed to be one of his biggest issues, being under Adam Gase and the Dolphins, and now he's free to roam with the Titans. They look really good, not going to lie. I thought they looked really good last week. But I believe this Patriots defense and Bill Belichick is better. Tom Brady's not quite done. All this talk about him being done is he's probably gonna think about it all week going into the game on Sunday, and he will end up winning the game and using his anger that he has and taking it out on the Titans. So that is my pick to go on to the next round. And these games, by the way, this podcast comes out on Sunday. So Sunday morning this will come out. So the games will be happening later that day. So, you watch this before the games happen. But even if they do, we're going all the way to the Super Bowl. So there's more variability. And plus, you guys can critique me to see if I'm right or wrong. Next game in the AFC. Next wildcard game is the Bills, 5 seed, versus the Texans, who are 4 seed. I like this Bills team all year. This Texans team I've liked, but they've been very inconsistent. They had that big loss to the Broncos a couple weeks ago. Deshaun Watson has always been one of my favorite quarterbacks since coming out of college, and he's shown that he's a capable and good NFL quarterback. But the Bills have been more consistent all year. They've only lost a couple big games against really good teams, the Patriots and the Eagles. This Texans team has lost some random games where it leaves you asking, is this team the real deal? That's why I'm going to pick the Bills to go on to the next round. Now we switch over to the NFC wild card, and we have a Vikings-Saints matchup. It is a rematch of the divisional round from 2 years ago where they played each other, and we all know what happened, the Minneapolis Miracle, where the Vikings got a last-minute touchdown to win the game. So, who is going to win this one? I think it's fairly obvious. They've been on a roll. I don't think I have to discuss this one that much. The Saints have been killing it recently. Drew Brees has come back to form. He's been looking great. And the Vikings, they've been fine. They had a hot start to the season, and recently they kind of dipped. So I'm going to take the team with the momentum, the team with the better quarterback. Drew Brees is certainly better than Kirk Cousins. So they're going to the next round. Final wild card game. We got the Seahawks versus the Philadelphia Eagles, and this is the battle of the injuries. My team, I root for the Philadelphia Eagles, and they're going to play the Seattle Seahawks in the wild card round. It's really tough. 2 really good quarterbacks. Yes, Russell Wilson's probably better, but Carson Wentz is really a superstar in the making. The Eagles have no receivers. They've looked terrible at times, like their loss to the Dolphins, and the Seahawks have been good all season. They have 11 wins. But the thing is, they've won a lot of these games by very little. So this is a toss-up in the air. Of course, the Seahawks pick up Marshawn Lynch, their legendary running back, and people were confused by that move, but what the move really was they wanted a new running back because Chris Carson went down, so they went out and got a guy who knew the playbook, and that man was Marshawn Lynch. So, I mean, it's really a toss-up. Hardest game to predict. I've been going back and forth all week, but I'm going to have to go with my team, the Philadelphia Eagles, mostly because I'm an Eagles fan, and I feel like this matchup is pretty even. I could be really wrong here. Like, I'm pretty sure about the rest of my picks, but this Eagles pick, I could definitely be wrong. So let's go to the divisional round, back to the AFC. We have the Ravens versus Bills. I don't think this one really has to be talked about. The Ravens have been on a roll all year. Good defense, good offense, good head coach. John Harbaugh's great. Lamar Jackson's great. Mark Ingram's great. Ravens, no doubt, win this game against the Bills. At home, it's not difficult to me. Bills are a great team. I like them all season, but I don't think they can beat this Ravens team. Chiefs versus Patriots. This is an intriguing one, but I'm going to once again stick with the Patriots. The Patriots are going to beat the Chiefs in the divisional round. This is an interesting pick. I'm not sure if I'm completely right here, but I feel like last year we saw the Patriots have a fight in them, and they've always had, and I see no reason as to why to doubt the Patriots, and I'm going to pick them. I doubted them last year. I'm not going to do it again. I'm sticking with them in this divisional round. They are going to beat the number 2 seeded Chiefs to go on to the conference finals. On the NFC side, we got the 4 seeded Eagles versus the number 1 seeded 49ers. If this game does happen, I believe it will be a very close game. But I just can't see myself picking the Eagles to beat the 49ers. Maybe if it was in the wild card game, I might go with the Eagles. But, they've already beaten the Seahawks. They've really tested their luck down the stretch. I think their luck runs out here like it did last year against the Saints. The Eagles and this miracle run, once again, are going to fall to the giant of the 49ers, who have a great defense, good quarterback, good head coach, looking similar to the Patriots. This next matchup is the Saints, number 3 seeded, versus the Packers, number 2 seeded. Again, I like the Packers all year, but they've been inconsistent. They haven't looked great. They almost lose against the Lions in a must-win game. And when you see something like that, the Saints haven't tripped up all season. They've looked good all season. And even when Drew Brees was out, and when Drew Brees comes back, he doesn't look that good. He's picked it back up. This Saints team has shown a will to win, and they are not going to lose it to the Packers. So we have our 2 conference finals set as Saints versus 49ers and Patriots versus Ravens. Ravens-Patriots matchup. This would be a hell of a matchup. We've seen it a couple weeks ago. It was a close game. Ravens win. Who am I going to pick? And once again, no. I think that the Ravens will beat out the Patriots to make it to the Super Bowl. Again, they're really good, okay? The Patriots are really good. But I just can't justify looking at the roster and the way they've played in a couple of these games, sending them to the Super Bowl. And that's really the main thing for me. I look, at several different factors, and if I think they're relatively even, or, a legendary defense like the Patriots have with a great head coach and a great quarterback. But the Ravens did beat them earlier in the season, and I feel like the Patriots' luck has to run out somewhere. So I'm going to say it runs out in the conference finals. I just can't justify them making it to the Super Bowl. Another great matchup is 49ers versus Saints. This is a good matchup. I like it. I like the matchup. I like the 49ers a lot. They're one of my favorite teams to watch. George Kittle's great. Their defense is great once again. But they're playing the Saints, who have looked like a juggernaut down the stretch. I also don't want to have 2 number 1 seeds playing for the Super Bowl. So for those reasons, and for that the Saints have looked really good, we're going to pick the Saints to go to the Super Bowl, even though I really dislike the Saints. I love you. I love the Saints fans. I have nothing against you. I just don't like your team. So here we go. Super Bowl. Ravens versus Saints. Ultimate showdown of what I believe throughout the whole season have been the 2 best teams in all of the NFL. So who is going to take the cake and win the Super Bowl? Will it be the Ravens with Lamar Jackson on a miracle run where everyone doubted him, end of first-round pick, saw Josh Rosen getting picked ahead of him, saw Sam Darnold getting picked ahead of him, saw Baker Mayfield being picked ahead of him? this Ravens defense is also great, and John Harbaugh was almost fired last season until Lamar Jackson saved him. Or will it be the Saints? Drew Brees gets injured in the middle of the season. Teddy Bridgewater doesn't lose a game. They've looked consistent and good all year and have the best home field advantage in all of the sport. Who will it be? It's really a toss-up for whichever team you like. And for me, I'm going to pick the Saints. I believe the Saints will beat out the Ravens. This Ravens team has been good all year. But when a Drew Brees-Lamar Jackson matchup happens, I think we are going to see Lamar Jackson not crumble, but I think we're going to see Drew Brees rise to the occasion for once. I think he has a chip on his shoulder, and I think they're going to go all the way. The Saints are my Super Bowl pick. They're going to beat the Ravens in the Super Bowl. I like my bracket here. I think it's pretty good. And I think, there's potential that all of this will happen. So that is this segment. We'll be right back on TR Sports with another segment. I think we are going to be talking about the Sixers and looking at their team, reviewing their season. What do we think of them? So that is up next on TR Sports. Welcome back to TR Sports. It is now time to talk basketball, NBA. A couple segments ago, I don't remember which one, I think I said something about not covering the Sixers in this episode. I was wrong because I did decide to put a Sixers segment in here. But this is a new series, I guess, called Team Review, where we're going to be looking at different NBA teams throughout the season. And again, I thought a great way to start it was by talking about my favorite team, the Philadelphia 76ers. And right now, they're not in a good place. They look terrible, and we can kind of trace this losing streak or, bad groove they're in back to 12/15, December 15th. They go to Brooklyn. They lose to the Nets 89-109. On the 18th, they lose to the Heat 108-104. And then on the 20th, they lose to the Mavericks 117-98. That's a road trip. A trend you see with the Sixers this season is their struggle to win games on the road. We can win at home, but they can't really win on the road, and that's the issue for them right now. Let's continue. After the Mavericks game, it's 125-108. That is a win on the road against the Wizards. After that, it's 125-109. That's a win on the road against the Pistons. Then on 12-25, the Sixers beat the crap out of the Bucks, 121-109. That was by far the best game of the season. On Christmas Day, the Sixers come in and kind of prove that they're the real deal to the world, and everyone's talking about them. And then 2 days later, on the 27th, they lose to the Magic 98-97. I was at that game in Orlando. They looked terrible, could not get the ball in the hoop, looked like there was a lid on the basket, and it made Orlando look like they were very good at defense. After that, the Sixers once again lose to the Heat by 1 point in overtime. It was 117-116. Again, Heat are a really fun team to watch, but not when they're beating my favorite team, the Sixers. And then finally, maybe the worst game yet, 115-97. Indiana Pacers beat the Sixers on the road. So the Sixers went on the road to the Pacers, got their wheels beaten off. So today, when I'm recording this, it is Friday. So the podcast released on Sunday. So the games that they have yet to play is tonight at 8 p.m. against the Rockets. So they play that tonight, even though this releases on Sunday. I have to get all the segments done before that day, so I kind of spread them out, and that's what I've been doing for this week to try to get Season 2 out with all this great content that we got. We got the interview next. Anyway, the Sixers have looked really bad recently. Record overall is 23-13, which is not terrible on paper, but they are 6th in the Eastern Conference. And the issue is a couple things, I think. Number one, Embiid has to be more dominant, get in the post. He's shown flashes of dominance, the Bucks game where he shut Giannis down and was dominant in the paint and kind of bullied everyone on that court. That was a flash of the Embiid I want to see every night. But we don't get that every night. And I know that might sound like a high standard, but people talk about Embiid like he's a defensive beast, MVP candidate, and all of this, right? But he's not Giannis. He's not. Giannis consistently does what Embiid on Christmas Day did to Giannis every night. Giannis does that on April, in March, in May, in February, in January, in October. Every night, Giannis goes out, scores 31 with 10 rebounds and blah, blah, blah assists, right? Giannis is dominant. Embiid does not have that dominance, and I think that's a main issue for the Sixers going forward, is how are they going to tap into Embiid and get that dominance back? Another thing is Josh Richardson brought him in from Miami in a sign-and-trade, which was a nice package to get for the return of Jimmy Butler. But he's been not good either. I mean, he's shown flashes. He's kind of picked it up on the last road trip. But again, they're losing. They're losing games. He might be getting 16 points. But number one, Josh Richardson fouls a lot. He's having issues defending well without fouling. So that has to be fixed. His offensive game has been really off. His three-point shot has not been that good. I don't have the percentages in front of me, but it's not what the Sixers need. People are talking about, Josh Richardson's not doing his job, so let's bring in a guy like CJ McCollum from the Portland Trailblazers. That's just, really, please don't do that, because if you're going to have to go out and get a guy like CJ McCollum, then you're going to have to give up Al Horford, and Al Horford's one of the highlights for the Sixers team this season, even though some nights he's only had 5 points, and offensively he's not always there, but defensively, he looks good. He really brings this core together. Even though they're not clicked completely yet, which I really hope they do pick it up in the next couple of games. So here's what I'm thinking. Ben Simmons, you're next. 3-point shot, where is it? Brett Brown literally says to shoot one every game. It's not even close to that. I don't know how many attempts he's taken this season, but it's not even close to where we want it to be. We need Ben Simmons shooting more. I've been a big supporter of Ben Simmons ever since he came into the league, and he still hasn't done it for me. Yes, he can assist. Yes, he can rebound. And yes, he could probably score 25 points on a team like the Hornets. But we're trying to win games with a stacked team, and Ben Simmons just has not done it for me this season. I need more out of him, more shooting. Please shoot the ball. And especially with Ben Simmons, he does a lot of side things off the court, like with Kendall Jenner, many distractions that it's just, is it worth it to have that on the court? Do you want to trade a guy like Ben Simmons for Devin Booker? It's a question mark that I think should be put up in the air. A question that should be asked. Is Ben Simmons what this Sixers team needs? Personally, I don't want to get rid of him. I think he's a great player with great potential, but he needs to get in the gym more. He needs to work more, and he needs to shoot more. That's the issue that I have with Ben Simmons. But overall, the team, they don't look terrible. They looked terrible the past 3 games. But maybe they can pick it up against the Rockets. You guys know the answer to that. They have a lot of potential. I think they're going to make a deep playoff run. But the question is, can we get into a great seeded position? Because if we finish 5th in the Eastern Conference, we're not going to play a bad team. And the Heat look like an issue to us. Even though we blew them out the first game we play, the next 2 games we lose. Okay? I think they can beat the Bucks. I think they can beat the Raptors. I think they could beat any team in the East. But do they want it? Do they want to click? Can Brett Brown put this team together? Can Ben Simmons take more shots? Can he bring the team together? Can we have some accountability and leadership in the locker room? That's what Josh Richardson said, at least. We need more accountability. And I agree with that statement a lot, because that's what the Sixers need right now. They need Brett Brown to step up, Ben Simmons to step up, Joel Embiid to step up, Josh Richardson to step up. The only real highlight of the Sixers team this season, I feel like, great highlight, is Tobias Harris. He's been everything I needed him to be. He's hit the 3 nicely. He's scoring. He's doing everything he's asked. But can the rest of the team step up to that level? It's a serious question that I want to see the answer to. So, Sixers, we'll check up on them in a couple of weeks. Have they been a disappointment? I don't think so, but can they really step it up? I do believe so. So next up is this interview with Atlanta Hawks Nation. That is next on TR Sports, the first interview. It went great. Great guy. So that will be the next and final segment of TR Sports, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to TR Sports. This next segment's really special and really awesome because it's something that I've been wanting to do since I started the podcast, and I finally got a chance to do it. I interviewed another sports fan, a fan page on Instagram, Atlanta Hawks Nation, Andrew, really nice guy. I had a great conversation with him and a great interview. And that's what this segment is. It's great. He was great to have on the show, and you guys, I think, are going to enjoy him too. I'm sure some of his fans are listening to this. But it was great, especially to open up season 2. Again, I say it during the interview. I have more interviews in the works like this that I want to release, and I will release, and more stuff in the works, I promise. But this is Atlanta Hawks Nation. Andrew, really nice guy, so enjoy the interview. Hello, guys. Welcome back to TR Sports, and we have something really special for our first time on the podcast. We are doing an interview. I got more of these in the works, but this is our first guest on the show, and I'm really excited for it. This should be great. Please welcome Andrew from Atlanta Hawks Nation. Hello, Andrew.
Hey, thanks for having me.
So I thought what we could do is talk about your page before we talk about the Hawks and their season. And, you know, it's really not been what they were expecting the season to go like. But, you know, starting your page, you've been doing your page since around 2015, a long time ago. Did you expect it to grow as big as it has?
No, I actually started just for fun, and a few weeks later it started blowing up, and I just went with it, and then next thing I know, it's like a hobby to me now. So
and that's crazy because, you know, in times for me, I've tried to start stuff like a fan page on Instagram, and it's a lot of work to consistently keep, you know, updating the games and all that stuff. I tried to start a Sixers fan page. I couldn't do that. I'm a Sixers fan, and it's a lot of work. So was there a time when it was growing where you wanted to quit or took a break and you just kept going?
Yeah, I mean, at first, you're wanting to get to 1,000 followers or whatever. I think that's big, and then it does take a lot of time and patience because it doesn't happen overnight. But yeah, I just kept with it. I'm a really big fan of the Hawks, always have been. So I just always kept, posting stuff and whatnot, and then it just kept growing every day, and then it's gotten me to games. I've met front office people, I've met players, and so it's really been special. I've never thought it would come to what it is today.
And like stuff like meeting front office people, was there a specific moment for you where you really found out, like, man, this is getting me somewhere, and like this has grown into something bigger than I thought it would to be? Have you had a moment like that?
Honestly, last summer probably was that moment. I had probably around 7,000 followers last June, and I got a message to be able to go to the training facility, and I got to meet the GM and a few other players, and that was really, I was like, wow, this page got me here. So that's probably the first moment, yeah.
As a Hawks fan, they've hit some rough times since that season where they had Jeff Teague and Kyle Korver and all those guys that were balling out for them. They've really slowed down since then, and this season specifically, there was hype going into the season. People thought they were going to get better, and of course you've hit roadblocks like John Collins has gotten suspended and stuff like that. Do you think it's gonna get better from here?
Oh yeah, I definitely think there's nothing but going up. People have tend to forget that, this is really like a second, third year into rebuild. And, rebuilds take time. It's like as a Sixers fan, the Sixers were not great for a couple years there, and it takes patience. Yeah. But I keep telling Hawks fans, I'm like, that this year, they weren't going to win the championship this year. They're not a championship team. They're not even anywhere close to that. So There's no point in getting upset, it's a rough start. Missing Collins the first 25 games. We've missed Herter. These rebuilds take time. It doesn't happen overnight. But, obviously it's a frustrating start. But people just have to, remember that, these guys are 21, 22 years old. And these rebuilds take time. And, I think it will get better. Trae Young is
Yeah, outstanding.
phenomenal.
Yeah, he's
And I mean, he's 21 years old. He's phenomenal. I mean, it'll just take pieces to be put around him, and I do think that in the next few years, the Hawks definitely could have something that could worry the NBA.
mm-hmm.
But like I said, it takes time, and I'm not really too worried about it right now.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just going to be a process over a few years.
And as a Sixers fan, we were in that terrible stretch, and then we had that year. We had a year where no one believed in us, and we got 25 wins. And then we took that 25 wins. We got the third pick, traded up for Markelle Fultz, which didn't really work out, but that season and the spirit, you could really see the city come alive again. And then the next season we go to the playoffs and we lose to the Celtics. But do you see that season coming in the future? Do you think that next season, maybe not this one, but the next one, do you think that the energy in Atlanta, can it come back, and could your core light up? And do you think that season where you're going to make the playoffs is coming in the next 2-3 years?
Oh, yeah, definitely, for sure. I mean, even this year, I went to the home opener this year, and I've never felt the energy in the arena like since that 60-win season. I mean, I've been to a couple games this year, and just even when they're down, just the crowd is into the game. I mean, there's people going to the games, mainly Trae Young selling tickets alone and by himself. But, I mean, yeah, I think that year is, within the next 2-3 years for sure. I mean, a lot of people wanted it to be this year, but, I mean, they still turn it around. Like last year, they turned it around after the All-Star break. But, I mean, these people just have to wait, and these things don't happen quickly. So, but, I mean, yeah, I think that year will be coming in the next 2 years for sure.
And what's weird about this year is you're gonna get a top pick, and of course there's the new lottery, and there's a whole bunch of variability on that now. But a lot of the top picks don't seem like a perfect fit for the Hawks. Jameis Wiseman, he can play maybe small forward, but John Collins is really in that role that Jameis Wiseman might be in. RJ Hampton's a guard. LaMelo Ball's a guard. Who do you think's the best fit for the Hawks in the upcoming draft? And could something like a LaMelo Trae Young combo work out?
It's really interesting to think about. I mean, a lot of these teams, there's actually several teams that are doing that combo guard backcourt now. I mean, NBA is changing.
Yeah.
I mean, it could work out, but I just see, us going with the big man, whether it's Wiseman or someone else. I mean, at this point, we're going to have a top 5, top 10 pick for sure. But I definitely see us going with the big man simply because we took Hunter and Reddish last year. I don't see, and we already have several young guards. I don't think they'd add another one. But at the same time, if it's best player available, then I definitely could see a combo guard backcourt coming into play.
And out of last year, out of college, I wasn't the biggest fan of Hunter. I didn't think he had that star potential. And so far this season, he's done pretty much what I've expected. But do you expect more out of Hunter? Can he be a part of a main core there? Do you think there's more potential that is there for him?
Oh, yeah. I mean, he's definitely one of the more NBA-ready rookies.
Yeah, for sure.
Because of his experience. But he's played great this year. He's done better than I thought he would.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's been great all around. He's the Heat game a few nights ago, he scored the last 9 points and forced overtime against the Heat. I mean, he's looking really comfortable out there.
The Heat are on fire this year with Bam and Jimmy Butler, and you guys put up a real fight against them. And that was a fun game. I mean, the Hawks as a team, I think, are really fun to watch just because of a guy like Trae Young, who is a lot like Steph Curry, but he has the passing vision and stuff like that. And that leads me to my next question here. Do you think Trae Young is putting up pointless stats on a losing team? Do you think they're blank stats, or do you think when the team gets better that Trae Young will continue doing what he's doing? I, for one, think that Trae Young's a great player and that he will continue to put up stats like this on a winning team, and that it's not just a guy like Michael Carter-Williams on the Sixers who had a Rookie of the Year season and just wasn't that good because the Sixers were terrible. Do you think Trae Young has potential to do what he's doing on a winning team?
Yeah, I mean, I really do. I try to be unbiased as possible when I talk to other NBA fans, but I mean, I think Trae Young definitely has that. I mean, no matter what you say about him, he's got that it factor, and he's got that superstar mindset, and he can take over a game. He's shown it before. He hasn't even played 2 seasons in the league yet, and he's shown that he can take over a game against anyone. But I definitely think that he's going to continue to grow in his career. I mean, my point that's to everyone. I'm like, he hasn't completed 2 seasons in the league, and look how many records he's broken. Look how many great performances he's put up. I mean, he's just getting started, in my opinion. But yeah, I think on a winning team, he can do the same thing. He just needs the right players around him. Because I mean, he can be great scoring and passing. Either way, he's a very dynamic player, and I think that what he's doing now is just, he's just getting started, and other players see what he's doing now. So a few years down the road, that's when you're wanting to see what more can he do.
And the Hawks made a big move a couple of years ago. I know you had an opinion on this. The Luka Doncic Trae Young trade, it seems to be looming over Trae Young's head and everyone in Atlanta's head. If you were to go back in time, would you have done that trade? Who do you think will win that trade in the end? Because both are great players. And at the time, I was a big Luka Doncic fan, and they picked Trae Young, who I wasn't sure about. But do you think that trade was worth it? Would you do it again?
Yes, because I'm a big believer in Cam Reddish, and we got Cam Reddish from that trade.
Yeah.
And I would say I wouldn't change anything because, I mean, the Mavericks have a better team to start with, and they just started to rebuild a few years before the Hawks did. So I mean, I thought that was kind of a given that the Mavericks would be a better team. But I mean, the Luka and Trae, they've put up pretty similar numbers. I mean, they're both phenomenal players. I mean, each player has their, they're better at this, better than that. But I mean, I think it's really too early to say who's going to be better than who. But I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with either one, to be honest with you. But like I said, I wouldn't change it because I'm a big believer in Reddish. And I think Reddish is going to have a game at some point this year where he can show what he can do.
Yeah.
And I think he's going to be one of those players that just needs time to, get used to the NBA, because like Trae Young last year, he came in and had a very slow start.
Second half
the second half of the season, he caught fire. So, I mean, these young guys, you got to give them time, and that's why I'm not too worried about it.
Now, as the Hawks, you guys aren't good this season, and people expected you guys to be good. And I think you have a great coach in Lloyd Pierce. But is there anything like firing your coach or trading this player, bringing this player in that you think could maybe salvage this season or make the Hawks more successful in the future?
I mean, yeah, this season hasn't been what anyone thought it would, but there have been questionable things that have happened. But personally, what I think, I mean, once Collins returns, see how, from when he returns to the All-Star break, see how things look. I wouldn't be shocked at all to see Jabari Parker traded. He's having a great season. I think he could definitely be traded to the team for a pick or young player, simply because he's on the cheap contract and he's putting up close to 20 points a game. So, I mean, I think either if Collins coming back doesn't salvage the season, then there'll definitely be a trade or two made.
Yeah. So great to have you on the show. First guest on the show. We're gonna have more. We have more in the works. We have a Rays sports page. We have a bunch of other things in the work. But thank you so much for coming on the show, taking time out of your day and coming and talking with me.
No problem, man. I had fun. Looking forward to hearing it.
Yeah. So thank you guys. That was this week's episode of TR Sports. We will see you next week. That is season 2 of TR Sports. We are back and better than ever. So I will see you guys all later.